Friday night, dude. Friday night.
Said it once before. After hours.
You know what happened to me this week?
Your wrist got better.
My wrist got better, yes. Did we talk about the wrist last week?
You said you were lifting something.
But did I say it on air or off air?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, anyway, let's move on.
Okay.
So this week, I'm in my classroom, and my EA says to me, there's some lady in the office. She's a vice principal. And our vice principal, Mrs. McDonald, said that they were going to come up and visit you. And I was like, what? And she's like, Mrs. McDonald, our vice principal, has a friend visiting her who's also a vice principal, and they're going to come up and see you at some time. I'm like, well, who is she? She's like, I don't know. Okay, thanks. So I'm doing my thing. My prep time starts, so I leave my class, go into the prep room. And oh my God, I look over to the door and I see my vice principal, Mrs. McDonald, with our brewmaster,
Oh,
Madame Chance. She's back from the third world country she was visiting. And she came to meet up with Sherry. And she came into the room. We had a great chat. And I was dying laughing because she was like, Roland, I listened to your podcast, and she was saying something about her husband was like, what are you listening to? She's like, oh, it's Roland. Like, no big deal. She was listening to us as she was in another country doing her thing. But so I wanted to send a shout out to the brewmaster. That's her nickname now, the brewmaster.
that's hilarious.
And isn't that cool? So she's back in town, and she stopped into school to visit my VP and made sure to say hello. And it was in that moment that I realized how powerful self-directed PD can be, because I met the brewmaster and I met Mrs. McDonald and a whole slew of amazing people that are now in leadership years ago when I kind of started on my formal leadership journey. I would sign up for initiatives that the board would put on to help people discerning leadership and aspiring leaders to kind of reflect on who they are and what they need to work on to help them along the way. And I've met so many fantastic people over that time that it's pretty cool. And to kind of preface the visit by the brewmaster, last Saturday, my son had his confirmation, which is a sacrament in the Catholic faith for grade sevens. And there was another dude, and Mr. L, let's call him Mr. L for now. Mr. L, I see him at church, but I don't really talk to him. And I've seen him around, and I know he's into the leadership thing, and I think he's thinking I'm in it too. But we've never been able to just talk after mass or whatever. We never used, hey, how's it going? But after confirmation, the kids were outside getting their pictures, and he saw me and he came over. He's like, Roland, what's going on, man? How are you doing? And I said, good, good. And, I told him I heard that he got into the VP pool. I was really happy for him. And it's this camaraderie that you get by meeting people in situations where you're chasing something. Like you're going after some learning on your own that you want to get. And I just felt so good that I've had opportunities to learn with these people and to walk with them on their journey. And I'm so happy for them. So Brewmaster's back, and she's a VP in the system. I'm looking forward to seeing where she ends up. And my buddy, Mr. L, who, we finally got to talk. It was great. Like, I got to congratulate him, and he said some kind words about the work that I'm doing with my kids. And it's stuff like that I love about being a teacher, about connecting with my brothers and sisters in education. Today, I went out for lunch, and I saw Andrew Bronski. He was out with his crew getting lunch, and like it was just nice to see the guy because we get along. We've known each other for a few years now, and those are the people I want to see, right? Like those are the people I want to run into when I'm out and about. I don't want to run into the people that I've worked with where it's been awkward. where those are the people, like I've talked about this on the podcast, where you're talking to them and you know that they don't want to talk to you. And you can feel that uncomfortable tension where you either just you get away from them, or for me, I stay and I milk it and I see what comes of it. So that's I wanted to throw that down. I wanted to make sure that we talked about the brewmaster because it was funny. We were talking, and then Sherry said, Mrs. McDonald, Sherry, she's like, has he even mentioned me on the podcast? And Brewmaster's like, yeah, don't you listen? Like, he's mentioned you several times. You're not listening. And I was like, yeah. Because when one VP's giving it to the other VP, it's awesome. I can't really do that. So it was nice that Amy did that for me. Thanks, Amy.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. The what did you have me thinking there? I was tripping along with you, and then it went missing. It'll come back.
Sorry, dude.
No. I gotta share. Here's something interesting. So I don't talk. I realized I had this conversation with my spouse actually the other day. I don't talk. It's funny. I was trying to sort of just clocking in all the hours that I've spent doing this, online, in public kind of reflection stuff. And it's funny. I don't often ground. Like, I'm not the teacher that's sharing pictures of my classroom. Like, I'm not that guy. I'm not sharing sort of like the learning that, like, once in a while I do it in sort of very protected zones when I'm sharing out what the kids are actually doing in the classroom. And it got to me thinking that kind of extends out into kind of my in real life stuff. Like, I don't talk. There's got to be someone that's heard some of my either podcast or conversation with you, or seen some of my posts, that wonder, like, is this guy really a teacher? Like, what does he actually do in education? I don't know if I just don't talk about my context much. And this is sort of brought to mind last night when I was, Karen and I, my wife and I were talking, and so she's a newly minted administrator this year. So her need to kind of bring herself down at the end of the day. There's so much learning. It's straight up in the air. You walk in and it's like, it's go time. And so she always needs some triaging when she comes home to be able to kind of de-escalate. And, it just got me thinking. It got me thinking about, like, I don't talk about my context in the students. And she was very, very kind. She said, well, because I'm always talking about my stuff. I'm like, no, I don't know if that's it. I don't know why. I think probably in the history of it coming up like on 2 years, dude, like, I think you've talked about and you've demonstrated so much more the stuff that's going on in your classroom. And I've wondered a few times whether or not, like, you've ever wondered more about what I do on the daily. You've mentioned it in bits and pieces, and I've kind of talked about, my past before teaching and some of the hot spots. But it just got me thinking about whether or not I need to up that game a little bit and start talking more about some of the smaller picture stuff that's on my daily. Out of that is just a very sort of a small, kind story. My own kids, Madeline, my daughter, she's asking me the other day about the students that I work with. So, I'm in an autism community class, so in high school, and she was trying to form a question, and she kind of landed somewhere like, what's it like working with students that have autism? And it's in many ways, for me, the way I look at it, it's like working with any student. Really is. I mean, you're bringing all your tools, all your resources, your structures, your empathy, your observations, your pedagogy. Like, you're bringing just your whole toolkit, and you're arriving, and you're doing your best to learn with, convey a lesson, support. Like, it's in many ways. And I know I may be missing the point for someone that needs more details, but for me and my brain, working with students, the current students that I'm working with, who all are on the spectrum, I feel like I'm in a regular classroom. Yet, I mean, if somebody were to walk in, they would probably be, if they weren't familiar, they'd be like, "Whoa!" Like they wouldn't know where to place themselves. They wouldn't know what to look at first. But that being said, I was trying to figure out, like, because her experience is at the elementary level. And one of the things that I've kind of learned through her and through some of my elementary colleagues, some of the ones that actually work at her school as well, is that supporting students on exceptional students is very different at elementary than at secondary, like almost two different animals altogether. And there's some connections, but just the proximity, the closeness, the management, like the sort of the support that a support worker that would be providing a single student elementary, I think, is far more intense than what I've experienced so far. So I was trying to give her a sense of that, and she knows I'm teaching a culinary class, so she knows we do cooking. She knows we talk and work through activities on food safety and like all the stuff that you would be doing in a cooking class. But I came at it this way instead. I said, well, it's really neat to see what my students, what their interests are, like what they have fun doing. And she said, well, what do they enjoy doing? And I said, well, I have one student that just loves to cut paper. Like that's the dude. If the dude could do that all day long, he would just cut paper. And we have sort of a choice cupboard that when tasks are finished, the students can go get their thing. And for him, magazines, newspapers, he just wants to cut paper. She's like, wow. She's like, I love paper too. She goes, I love paper. She goes, I love thick paper, like, cardstock. And I'm like, you know what? I said, the dude loves cardstock. He loves the sound of it. He loves the feel of it on the scissors. He's he's listening to it. And I said, I have another student that loves the, what are they called? The mini men that they released. There was like a little kit that was kind of like stop action men. They have like suction cups on their things, yeah. And you kind of put, so I have 3 of them in there. And sort of each days it goes in rotation. Each day is a different color, and he'll go and he'll sit, like he fascinates himself with it. I said, there's another student that loves to sing. I have another student that loves to read cookbooks. And, daughter throws down. She goes, sounds like a pretty cool crew. They have all the same. She goes, I like all that stuff too. So it was cool to sort of feel through her eyes that kind of openness about kind of like what I'm experiencing in the classroom with the students, the exact same thing. I wish up to this point I've been able to bring my kids to the school because I've always kind of worked kind of close and there was a reason to bring them to the school. But where I am right now, it's just logistically, it's not going to happen. I don't think I'm going to be able to introduce them. But it's unfortunate because I think my kids and my students would get along famously. But that's kind of the stuff, I've been thinking about this week. Maybe I should start sharing a little bit more about some of the stuff that I'm doing in the classroom. Because I just don't think to do it. It's funny. I always kind of find different things that I want to talk about in education apart from, I don't know, like apart from my classroom experience.
You got to turn on the camera and just talk into it, man.
As in start capturing, like doing more videos?
Yeah. You just turn it on and talk into it. And it's funny because I that's my advice to you. And that's what I've been trying to do all week, and it's just not happened.
Yeah.
I just wanted to sit down and turn it on and do a decoded creative code thing, and I just not been able to do it. I don't know. Actually, I do know what it is. It's priorities at work. It's I get a little bit of time and I jump on something that needs to get done. And I guess the video doesn't need to be done like the other things need to be done.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I hear you. Like I've not captured a couple of things that I've wanted to capture, and maybe this week it'll happen before the Easter break is maybe a good time to just stop and to say a few things. And I think if you can do it, you should, because we've got a place for that stuff to live.
I know, eh? I know. It was so, you know, if I go for some professional training, you know, if there's budget codes, sometimes they can bring in someone to cover all my classes for the day. But I always dig it when it's covered by someone in the school instead, because then I can go and talk. I love going and talking to individuals that are not teaching anywhere near the students that I work with. And it's just to say just their placement, like their next floor up, far corner of the school. Like they're not regularly interacting with our students. Now I will tell you, our students are loved. They're loved in the school. They're respected. They're given the space they need. They're so I got to reframe that. They're not our students. The students that I happen to work with, and I hate it when I accidentally compartmentalize my own kids, because they're not just students in our space. They are students of the school. But I have witnessed at times students with exceptionalities sometimes have barriers and limitations in the school. To all the awesome that my students have, they're maximized. Like I'll say my kids, I will bring them to, there's a culinary class in the school, like it's a full-on commercial kitchen. And on the days that they're cooking in there, because they also have classroom components, I'll gear up my guys. We all put on our aprons. We walk down the hall, cross the hall. We go to the kitchen, and we're hanging in the kitchen with the other students. And the other students that are in that course are all high fives. They know the students. They're trying to engage with them. They're trying to demonstrate. And of course, you know, I have, support staff with me. So we're kind of working with the students. Sometimes they get to do something on the tables, but it's just an example. Like they're a part of the school, but there's still teachers that don't interact with them on the regular basis. And I was, I don't know, I was on prep hustling through the hall, and there's a teacher. I still haven't met all the teachers. I think there's about 80 teachers on staff. So I've kind of met everyone, but all the names I haven't locked in. So this dude, Matt, he's like, I had the on-call when you're away in your class. I was like, oh yeah, cool. I said, what'd you think? And he said to me, and this was in my voice, he said, you have one of the most organized classes I've ever seen. And I was just like, you're serious? Like because that's not me. I'm not. He's like, dude, he said, you have like your bins all kind of set out, schedules organized. The kids know where they got to sit. The schedules on each kid's tables laid out. They knew exactly what they had to do. They did their work. And I started hearing his voice like he was a little envious. Like he's just a little envious. He's like, your kids do their work. They get their work done. They have their break. They get their work done. I said, yeah. I said, it's the nature of the beast. I mean, the activities have to be engaging, because they're like any teenagers. They're going to get bored. They're going to act up. I said, but, smaller class size, we're able to go there. But I was just like, I was glowing, man. Told me my classroom was organized. No one's ever told me anything that I do is organized. I have to be honest. Like, that's just not me in the natural state. Not at all. But that was a nice compliment. And in a lot of ways, I mean, organization on one hand is easy. You can find any template that will tell you how to be organized, whether it's time, resources. There's tons of stuff out there that will tell you how to do it. But if you've worked with any kid and tried to help them get organized with resources and time or just self, it's complex. Like finding the thing that actually gets them to activate and do it. So when this colleague's telling me that it looks organized and it is organized, and he understood the system of organization, I was like, I'm onto something. I guess I have to keep doing this. I have to fight my tendency to not be organized and keep doing that thing. But I'll say so far, that was the first assessment from outside. Like my colleagues that I work with they're so helpful, so positive. Like, you're doing fine. You're figuring it out. You just jumped in and started doing, like, you didn't even pause. But it's kind of like your parents telling you that you're handsome. You're like, yeah, you got to say that. Not that my parents ever said that, but I think you know what I'm talking about. But when colleagues from outside the bubble are looking at it and saying, that's good stuff, like you're on track there. It was good to hear. So
right on.
There's two we shares from my life as a teacher. I'm really digging the field trips that we're doing too. I got to drop that. Today we went mini putting. Oh my gosh. Talk about hilarious. Talk about hilarious. Let alone the fact it was glow in the dark. So we walk in there and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be sensory overload. Like we're gonna have to be really helping some of these kids like just stay like focused or not so focused. But man, it was awesome.
Tell me more about that. So how many kids went with you? Did you have any do you have parent volunteers in high school? Like
not
tell
typically.
me about that.
Yeah, not typically parent volunteers. Although it's just I haven't encountered that yet. They may be. It's one of those funny things. I've considered it and I've wondered why not. Right? Like I've wondered why not? Like why don't we have more parents kind of being a part of some of those activities when we do go into the neighborhood? So there was three classes that went together. So there's two sections of the ASD community class, and then we have one section of a DD community class. So all three groups went together, went on the bus. So in total we had 7 kids plus 6 kids, 13 kids. And then we had 3 teachers and to be honest, I didn't have to go. I could have stayed behind, but the periods that we were going, they were supposed to be me with me cooking. So it was like one of my teaching periods anyways. So we had 3 teachers and then I think we had 4 EAs. So it was almost like 1-to-1. It was pretty much 1-to-1 in coverage for it. So close to us, there's a lot of sort of megaplex kind of malls near us. So it was I forget what it's called, glow in the dark glow putt something. And you get in there and right away you're just kind of, there's a barrage of black light and fluorescent coloring. And I thought for sure a couple of our guys, they can kind of go either way with their anxiousness, and it cycles a little bit. And so trying to stay ahead of that, had a couple of them that were just like so thrilled. They'd knock it in 4 putts and you just hear them scream like, good shot. And I swear a couple of times it almost sounded like they were saying it in a British accent, which strikes me that maybe they've watched some TV at home and seen some golfing. They were sort of mimicking and kind of scripting golf commentating. But it was cool. It was very cool. We were sort of there for about an hour, and there's about a 15-minute bus ride on either side, and they all rocked it. And here's the thing that comes to mind to me is that I'm learning, your kids, like your own children, like the nuances of your own kids. And when you're watching kids, where they kind of are in their emotional state, if they're entering something, if they're kind of plateauing on something, if they're coming out of something, if there's another one coming up, what could trigger them in any different spot. My getting to know you stage of the students that I have has almost been, it's been very practical. I've had to go on IEP information, safety plans, anecdotals from the parents, previous notes from their classroom teachers, and all of that kind of sets a sort of a base from which I've had to sort of then cherry pick to match up with what I'm seeing in front of me. So it's not as if while I'm teaching the kid, I can have the safety plan right there and say, okay, am I kind of like where I might trigger something, or I might upset, or I might distract. It's so organic in getting to know the kids, yet much of what I do is based in some highly structured interaction, very highly structured interaction. So we get into these unstructured places, like basically like this warehouse that's like what I'm having like flashbacks as I'm in this place. I'm like, this is just like some of the raves I've went to, because there's like some dance music you can hear them play in the background, and like glowing butterflies on the ceiling, and these crazy, like the whole decor inside was just you know what it looked like? Have you posted the stuff on your Insta, the Rockstop skateboards?
The what skateboards?
What's the skateboard? I thought I've seen like
Rockstop.
Yeah, Rockstop.
The face, yeah.
Yeah, but just imagine that style of drawing, but like a volcano in that style, or like dinosaurs in that style. That's what the whole inside was like, and glowing, glowing, glowing. So you get in these open spaces, and all of a sudden, everything that was the structured way of getting to know the kids, it's out the door. We're now officially out in the community like we're parents. And I have these moments of like watching these kids and seeing their joy. And I have to take a second and sort of like really soak it in, because I was seeing versions of joy in that mini putt place that they don't come up in the school. Not like that. Not like that. And it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool and calm and chill. And they were everything that, like, it was just a really good field trip. It was a really good field trip. It was only an hour and a half long. One of the best field trips I've had, I would say.
That's awesome.
So it's good stuff for today. It was a good thing to do on a Friday.
We had a PD day today.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, the morning was an Electa morning, meaning it was all about us and for us. And so over the past couple of weeks, teachers have put together different workshops.
Yep.
And one of the grade 3 teachers at my school put together a proposal for a workshop for the grade 3 teachers at my school to gather and to do some work around EQAO and moderating a fake EQAO test that we gave our kids. So it was a good morning. I got to hang out with my grade 3 partners and one of the special education teachers, and we talked about what we noticed with the test that we gave them, what we need to work on to continue to prepare them, and just some anecdotal stuff. So that was good. So that was the morning. And then in the afternoon, we talked about assessment and evaluation in special education. So that was my day. So yesterday was a fake Friday for me, which is always kind of nice. And today was it was nice to just go in and have a chance to talk with my colleagues, an opportunity that we don't often have to actually sit down and talk. So I had that, and then some PD in the afternoon with all the teachers in the building.
We have something similar coming up on May 3rd. So on May 3rd, we have our OSSTF day. So
do you know what you're going to be doing that day?
To be honest, I still have to figure it out. What I've done in the past, because what they've done for us is in the morning, we are supposed to be working on our teachers' learning plans. So something that's kind of singular, like how you're professionally developing yourself. And what I've been doing for my learning plans this year, I've been going to other sites to see their community classrooms. So I've been driving all over my region, checking out their community classrooms. So I have to figure out if I can do that again, because we're supposed to be doing it locally. And there's a couple high schools that I would still like to go see what they're doing. So I'm kind of stealing best practice and bringing it back and rolling it into my thinking at the school. So I don't know. And then in the afternoon, it's department. We have to do something. We're developing something with the department. So no marking, no, it's something. It's basically, it's supposed to be like a department initiative. So that's how our day is going to sort of spread out. In the past, they've run through a few different iterations of this, and in the past, they've offered up, like, people could travel to each other's schools for different wellness initiatives. I went to the AGO one year, which was really cool. There was sort of like there was some art show there that was really, really cool. They've done hiking. So they've done a ton of different stuff. They've done models where it's almost like all different field trips. They had one field trip that Karen went to, I think 2 years ago. They went to the Aga Khan, the museum in Toronto, kind of like North Toronto. Yeah, they've had some really cool stuff. And then they pulled back and they said, well, no, now we're only going to do school-based stuff. And they allowed us to travel to each other's school. And they put it on our board portal so you could sign up and then just go there. And then this year they said, no, everything is actually, you have to stay at your school. Now there's a few exceptions. There's some regional conferences that people are going to, but every school is kind of putting on their own show that day. And that's about it. Yeah. That's going to flow up, but I should figure that out. I should figure out if I could actually get to another school, go and see one of their community classes.
That'd be right. Like, that'd be cool for you to actually see what they do at their school, compared to what you do, and see if you can grab some best practices from them that you might like or want to try. And then, I'm sure you've got a lot to offer them, even though you're relatively new at this particular position. That's always cool. Like, that's the stuff that gets me going, when you get to actually meet up with people who you have something in common with. It's good to do the opposite, to connect with people that are doing different things than you, that are different, but man, there's something powerful about getting together with people that you have common interests with. The other day, you know what, man, I've had some really good luck lately with Twitter chats. And so what's happened lately is I'll check out my phone and I'll see I'll catch a tweet that really hits me, and then I'll look at the hashtag and I'll just jump right in. So I jumped into a couple this week, and it was really good. Yesterday I was participating in Mystery Chat. I think it's called Mystery Chat. And they were talking about inspiration and stuff like that. It was really, really good, because the thing about it is, so for me, it's a reflective practice. So I go into these things, I read the question, and then I respond, but it allows me to think about my practice, what I'm doing, what I'm not doing, what I could be doing, how I might need to shift. It's so cool. And so I don't remember which chat it was, but there's something about inspiration, and I responded and I tagged a bunch of you as the people who kind of inspire me, who motivate me. And that was really good. Like, it had me thinking about my experiences with those particular people. So for you, it's really easy. Like, we do this podcast. I consider you a critical friend. So, we're past the point of, like, I'll share something with you, and I suspect the feedback you're going to give me can be good, bad, or ugly. And whatever it is, like, I'm cool with that. So it's important to have people like that. And, and for some people, it's you share something with them and you expect them to say something positive no matter what. And so you get some validation there. But the critical piece is important. And I've been reflecting on that. But anyway, it's just so cool to be able to connect with people and to have people connect with me. I have to be honest, I had a colleague sent me a message this week telling me that she got on Twitter, and she hadn't been on Twitter in a while, and she got on, the first thing she saw was about an activity that my students and I are engaged in right now. And she said that it got her going. Like, it made her feel like, okay, there's good stuff. There's some good stuff happening out there. And, she essentially kind of felt fired up because of it. I loved hearing that, and I really appreciated that, because I've gotten to the point where I think I'm doing a better job of moving past what people are thinking about what I'm doing, because I know what I'm doing, and I know how it's connected to the curriculum that I'm supposed to be teaching my students, and I know how it's connected to the context of my classroom and the kids who are sitting in front of me. And so I appreciated hearing that something I shared helped somebody, because We don't normally do that. Like, I try to tell people, and I did it in that tweet the other day, and it was really cool. There was a variety of people in that tweet, and they all come at me in different ways for different reasons. And some of them are people that I would consider critical friends, and some of them are not, but could be easily. You know, I think if I said to them, hey, listen, I'm working on this, I need you to tell me what's wrong with it. I don't want to hear what's working. I want you to tell me what sucks about it. I want you to tell me where my blind spots are. Just hit me. Just tell me, like, whatever comes to mind, say it. And then I'll be able to figure out whether I'm meeting a standard that I'm supposed to be meeting or whether I'm not, and then I need to reconsider what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. Which kind of brings me to a topic I wanted to talk about. Is it okay with you if I just kind of keep going with this, if I run with this a little bit?
Absolutely.
Okay, so along the lines of critical friends and connecting with people about particular activities or initiatives or concepts, collaboration, creativity, my students and I have been working on creating a prosthetic hand which is 3D printed. And I need to give you a little bit of history to provide like a context for what's going on and where we are today. So I think maybe 6 years ago, I was teaching grade 2, and a student of mine came to me with an idea, and it just blew my mind. This class in particular had been working very well in terms of using technology in the classroom to assist them with their learning and their creativity. And this class had gotten to the point where they had maxed out their use of these tools. And they, in my opinion, had evolved in such a way that they were ready to move beyond these tools and into other realms. And so here's the example. I had one student who came to me and told me about this idea she had. And she said she could see it in her head. And she said that she could put it like into a computer, but that what it looked like in the computer isn't really what it looked like in her head. And she wished that she could just make it and hold it in her hands. And like right away, something hit me. And it was like, I think 3D printing might be able to meet this need. Now, I know I could have gotten her cardboard and wood and we could have built something. I get that. But that's not really where my passion is. So my head went right to tech, and it went right to 3D technology and design and printing. So I had that idea sitting up there. 2 years later, I find myself in a grade 4 classroom, and I have a 3D printer. No idea what to do with it or how it works, but I'm like on an adventure. And so I was provided with funding from the Teacher Learning and Leadership Program through the Ministry of Education to buy the printer and to have release time to work with this thing and figure it out and like have my kids create stuff and bring it to life. Now, at that time, I remember thinking I had heard of 3D printed prosthetics, but I guess I just wasn't at the time connected with the right people. I wasn't in the right PLNs. Those people weren't in my PLN. And so I never was able to connect with anybody who could help me along that way. And I've been bothered about that for 3 years because I felt like it was a great way to engage my students in being able to do something to help others using this technology. I just thought it would be a great service to others, and it just didn't work. So then move 3 years later to now, where I discover a person on Twitter who's into getting into STEAM and having her students create stuff in a number of different ways, and one of which is 3D printing. And then there's a connection to an organization called Enabling the Future, which is a group of global volunteers who help create prosthetic limbs using 3D printing technology. And I do a little bit of investigating. I talk to my kids, and I basically say, like, like, are we going on this journey? Do you want to come with me? Because I certainly want to go. And but I can't do it if there's no interest in the classroom, I can't do it here. I'm gonna have to do it on my own somewhere else. And they're like, no, like we talked about in detail what it means to serve others. And because we're in a Catholic school and we can talk about our faith and about Jesus and his mission and the mission of our school board, do we want to engage in this? Do we want to learn more about this and see how the technology can help other people? The kid's totally excited. And so then we start the journey. We try to start to figure out, how do we even do this? Where do we start? Where do we end up? And every day that we've been doing this, we've been moving forward. And every day I say the same thing. I have no idea what I'm doing. Like I tell them, I, as your teacher, don't know what I'm doing. I'm learning along the way. I'm taking risks and I'm open to the challenges. And that's life. That's life. That's how it works. And they've really jumped on board with this, the risk taking, the lifelong learning, watching me fail and succeed as we try to print things, and I take them through the process. So where am I going with this? This is where I'm going. I'm writing a blog post about this because I got a tweet today. I got a couple of tweets because of a short video I posted. So I posted a picture of the hand, the pieces we had and how we were putting it together. And then I posted a short video of the hand pretty much complete, like the fingers and thumb are all intact and stuff. And my students, this was their idea actually. They said, can we make something to share with people why we're doing this? And I said, yes. So what do we want to tell people? And they talked, it was just 15 seconds, like how the learning is hard and that's why we're doing it, and how we're helping people that don't have hands, that could have a hand. And that like, it's kind of a rough journey, but we're in. And I've been getting tweets about it. And one of the tweets I got was around, like, one of my colleagues, a trusted colleague said, this looks like a high school project. How are you doing this? And I said, it's not high school. It's totally primary. And then he said something about, well, like, how are you going to convince people of what you're doing? And, I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. What I'm doing is something that I felt strongly about, that my kids, my students agree with. They agree with the premise of why it's important to jump into this kind of learning. And what does it look like in a grade 2-3 classroom? So I don't have 8-year-olds on the computer, designing hands. That's not what we have. What we have is a group of kids who are engaged in the mission to help other people who don't have what we have, or who find themselves disadvantaged in a way, and then we can help them level up by providing a service to them. That's like the best case scenario, is that we print a hand that someone can actually use. Mm-hmm. The worst case scenario is that we engage in this inquiry activity led by me and kind of guided and supported by me, where I'm modeling for my students what it's like to take risks, what it's like to be resilient and show grit, what it's like to not give up to get to somewhere where you want to be, whether you get there or not. And from that, not only are they getting that, in my opinion, but they're also learning how to use the technology. So that's what it looks like in a grade 2-3 classroom. It's not about the kid goes on the computer and creates a hand. That on its own is a bonus. What we're getting, they're seeing, we are creating something, we are bringing something to life that they never thought we could do, but we're doing it. And so where are we right now? We're at the point where we have enough knowledge and experience that we've created the basic hand, and we have to go deeper and build some more things into it. And then we have to share it with this organization so they can approve of what we've done. And if that goes well, then we will hopefully connect with someone who needs a hand. And then we can actually then create the hand for that individual. And by that point, it's my opinion that by that point they can be more hands-on involved, because we will have established like a foundation for what we're doing. I had to get this out somehow, because writing my blog is going to take me 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
Because it's not easy for me to put this all together. And I was telling you on the on-ramp that for me, this is a really big deal. And I think I've made that clear to the kids. This is a really big deal. You're 8 years old, but you're doing something that can potentially help another child your age. You don't have to wait until you're my age to make a difference.
It's true.
We have the technology. We have the know-how. And, big thumbs up to the people who I've reached out to help me. So the one person that kind of got me kickstarted on the right path, her name is Valerie Perez, and she's on Twitter. And then I have to send a big thumbs up to Doug Braden, who works at Inksmith. And it's Inksmith is the company where we got the printer from. And I believe Doug and his buddies there at Inksmith have created one of these hands. They did it a while ago. And I'll say to the kids, I'm stuck. We have to contact Miss Perez or Mr. Braden and just kind of throw this at them and see what they say. And both of them have been very supportive. But my kids said as well, they said, okay, so they told us like kind of what to do, but we still have to do it. So there was a piece that needed to be molded. And in the instructions, it talks about using hot water and it talks about using a heat gun. And Doug said they have one at the shop, but he's not there. So when he gets back, if I want, I can go in there and we can work on it. And I was like, you know what? I don't think we can wait. So I did the hot water thing and it totally worked. And my kids, you should have seen the look on their faces when they saw that what we read on the screen together, the knowledge we acquired from our reading, our research, was then put into action and applied by actually following the instructions. We're talking about procedural writing right now.
Yeah.
And they were like, holy cow, Mr. C, this is like a procedural text. And we're doing it and it's working. And the look on their face when I took that piece of plastic, put it in hot water, pulled it out, and then molded it to what it needed to look like. They were like, it's that moment that you don't forget. Like I've had that over the past few years. I've had those moments where the kids see something and all of a sudden it just clicks and they're like, this is what I'm going to remember when I leave and I have 5 memories of elementary school. This is one of the things that's going to stick in my head.
Yeah, for sure.
I had that moment with these kids the other day. And you know what I told them? Like, I said to them, I'm proud of myself and I'm your teacher. It's my job. And I'm proud of myself. This is a huge accomplishment for all of us. And I said, it took me 42 years to get here. It's only taken you 8. And so remember that and don't let that go. And don't let people tell you what you can, what you can't do. And use technology to benefit others and to do good. And that's what your mission is. Like when you leave me and you forget about the math I taught you and the writing I taught you, remember what we tried to do to help people to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
And then go and do it. Go and make it happen in your way. And so this is all connected, right? Like the PLN, the trusted people, leaning on people. When people contact me for help, I do my best to assist. And I hope that they do that when we contact them. And if we're all doing that together, it's those moments that, like, man, it makes you feel good about humanity, right? It makes you feel good about the work we're doing. And to be honest with you, you and I have talked about education right now in Ontario, and it's these moments in class that make me think, okay, we're on the right track here. Like, no matter what happens, we're on the right track with the kids. They're learning. I hope that they're getting more than, I kind of feel like they are more than what they're supposed to get in grade 2 and 3. And as this project continues, whether, we're building another hand. We don't know who it's for, whether, we don't get whether we don't get a request, we're still going to build it and donate it So it's going to happen,
Hmm.
and they're going to be more part of this experience. And it's funny too, this is my last thing that I want to say, is some people have said, well, how is everybody in your class participating? I said, well, they're not. Some people, some of the kids are not interested. And so what's happened is, which is fine, just like in other things, what happens is, every day I do an update on the hand. Like every day we kind of come together and I do like a 5 to 10 minute. This is where we're at with the hand. This is where we're at with the design. This is where we're at with me asking people for help. And then throughout the day, when we find pockets of time where the kids who are interested are done other things, then we come to the hand and we continue to work on the hand while other students choose to do other things with their little pockets of time that are available to them. Generally speaking, everybody's participating, but there are some kids like who said to me the other day, "Can I put the thumb together? I want to put the thumb together." I'm like, "Yeah, you're putting the thumb together." And the look on their face and like, oh my God, like the fact that they had a hand in building a hand and lending a hand is like, it's really kind of cool. So thanks for letting me kind of get that out. And now
No, that's good, man.
it won't take me 3 days to write the blog post, but I started tonight and I'm stuck on like paragraph 3, and it's okay. I'll just move on, work on it tomorrow some more.
Yeah, exactly. I like how we're sort of jumping on the joy. Seriously. Coming down the pipe, I'm looking, I told you I like these field trips, right? So coming down the pipe is the we have a track and field meet with the community classes. Gonna be awesome. And also the one that's like, it's kind of like the centerpiece of the year. It's the Best Buddies prom. So we have a daytime prom that we go to, which is just like, that's gonna be cool. It's going to be really cool. And when one of the things that I've come to really appreciate is the shape of joy in the classroom that I'm working in. And what I mean by that is it's easy to forget how, like, when when I have an emotional state, it kind of passes. It sort of transitions easily. It sort of like gets softened. It rises and flows. Like for me, I can move through my emotional states. And I think in doing that, it's sometimes also easy to just kind of flow past a state and not pay attention to it, and not really examine it. If it's something of value, to sort of cherish it and pay attention, or if it's something that you want to dispense with, to make sure that you're letting it go, but just to be self-aware. I mean, we could call it mindfulness if you want. That's sort of like awareness of self. I will tell you, I've learned to be very slow in my sort of observation of the joyful moments in my students, because they don't come at you in what I would say in a neurotypical manner. And they're also sometimes wrapped around other behaviors that, even though the student may be quite happy, it can actually sometimes lead to an agitated state. So being with them in their joy is really important, because sometimes there's some assistance that we provide, again, if they become too anxious or energized, and sometimes that can create movement and sort of other sort of like the student just doesn't have let's say a master of the self-regulation tools to sort of bring themselves back down again, right? So going into these spaces where we have a field trip where you can observe joy in a variety of modes, it's pretty cool. Like it sort of reminds me, as you're sort of, I think, reflecting some of the purpose in the teaching, like what the good stuff that you want to carry with you, the stuff that is kind of like the gold, the positivity that you need to keep account of in some way. An easy way is photos, video, all that kind of stuff. But you can also account just by being present. And I will say the one thing that I've learned to do more of is to be present in pace with my students. On one hand, it is a tactic so that I'm sort of being able to track their behavior and to be able to help them track their own behavior to help them. But a connection to that, the other thing that happens because of that is that I've also become more aware of their states. And it's for me, it's been a deeper way of getting to know the kids. Of course, there's a whole data tracking element to it, but just to be working across from a student and getting to know them in a second to second. I have the luxury of spending a lot of time with my students. I would wish the same for any teacher, because the more time that you do spend with a child, where you're intentionally looking for the good stuff, you really come to love the kids. It happens. It happens. So to that end, I'm really looking forward to the prom. We got a couple real hardcore dancers in our group. Like, you throw on the tunes and they just, like, they're gone, they're dancing. And then we have others that are just kind of like swayers. We have others that they may not show any, like they might not emote at all, but I know on the bus coming back, they're going to be singing those songs. Like, it's just going to be looping, like they're going to carry the tunes with them. So it's going to be cool. And the track and field thing, I don't even know how that one's going to run. That's just going to be kind of mind blowing to me. But some of that joy.
I just had a thought.
Mm-hmm.
Will Chris Clough ever work in a regular classroom before he retires? Will that happen?
So,
and I just because we've talked about this, I believe you've always been on the periphery.
Yeah.
In education, you've always been on the outskirts with the most marginalized students, and you can define that however you want.
Well, it's actually it's actually quite technical. So students with exceptionalities, students with deeper exceptionalities, behavioral programs that are trying to avoid the school to incarceration path, working with students that are on suspension and expulsion. So they're very like, you're right. I don't know, man. I don't know. I still have I have my foot in there, right? Because I do the learning strategies, which is a larger semi-neurotypical kind of student. You know, you get with them and you get close, and they have some challenges that sometimes can kind of pull them off the rails. But they're able to sort of access some of the regular streams of stuff that are going on in schools. But I don't know. I think I'm too far gone, dude. I think I am. You're too deep, in the periphery that you can't come back. I don't think so. Because I think there's a whole deep curiosity in me about assisting and serving and connecting and creating with kids in these spaces. It's more than just the kids. It's the spaces that they exist in. It's the challenges that they bring to the class. It's the connection with the parents. It's some of the freedom that you have with the programming to really get to the kids where they are. That's everything, to get the programming, to bring the programming to where the kid is, and, try and grow something from there. I'm too far gone. I could be placed, we can avoid some of the politics, but I could be placed in something different next year. Depending on cuts and staffing, it could happen. When do you guys talk about that stuff? Like have you and admin already have a conversation about staffing? No. Our board, I think, is one of the few that is holding out. They've said, because I'm sure you've seen how many boards are posting online the letters that are going out to teachers. There's so many boards that are posting that up, right? Mm-hmm. My board is waiting until the end of April, front end of May, to take care of that. They're waiting to get firm, because some of these boards may have initial numbers as far as their section allotment, right? But I think some boards, I suspect, could be wrong, but I suspect some boards are kind of letting their staff know ahead of time, kind of based on the numbers that the government has said. They may know. Our school board is saying they're not going to be having those formal conversations until the end of April. So, and then like normally the staffing cycle normally teachers would have known at the front end of April if they were surplus to their school, like in a regular school year. And they would be looking to transfer or get another, placement at another school. They're going to be and so you have a full month, maybe 5 weeks for that process. They're going to be doing this, I think, within 2 weeks' time. It's going to be so tight.
Wow.
It's going to be so tight. Yeah. So that'll be happening at the end of April. When will those stuff?
Do you in secondary with your board, do you provide the principal or the vice principal, whoever's responsible for you, do you provide them with like information about what you're interested in and where you'd like to be next year?
Yep. So has
that happened?
Yeah. So that happened. So they did the staffing surveys. I think were done maybe back in December or January. So that's kind of like the staffing cycle starts November-ish, kind of softly, by department heads being asked whether or not they're going to reapply for their positions. So whether or not they want to reapply to lead the department. So because that tends to be one of the spaces that starts the shifting of people. So once that's done, then late December, January, they put out the staffing survey to let admin know what you're interested in, what you're sort of certified in, what you're interested in. And then from there, the staffing committee, comprised of teacher members and admin members, they start figuring out where people are going to be based on the section, sort of based on the section allocation that the board gives you. So the school board says you have X number of sections, and for every 6 sections-ish, that's 1 teacher. So they know the number of staff they can carry according to that. And then coming out of that, once they start to get a kind of a penciled in schedule for the school, which they're not revealing to the school, but they have it kind of set, from there, they know the teachers who they need to have conversations with because they might be surplused. Okay. And then, once we get into May and June, there's a flurry of activity of transfers between schools. So you might be surplus to your school because, well, who knows, maybe enrollment's declining. So, I mean, I guess that's one of the primary factors. If your school's in a growth spurt, it's not likely you're going to be surplused, but it could happen somewhere else on the board. But the transfer list is open to anybody. So you have this other sort of almost like domino effect that you might not be surplus at your school, but you see a position at a school closer to you that you want to apply for. So you get in touch, you could leave. And one of the things that can happen is, let's say you leave the school and one person was surplused, that person can then be called back. So if you are surplus, you get a letter of recall if you want it. And that means up for the first 1 year afterwards, if there's an opening that happens to come up at the school that you're surplus from, you can go back to that school. You're permitted to go back.
Okay.
So there's staffing in a nutshell. I'm 95%. It's been a while. I was on staffing committee back in the day, but I think that's the broad strokes. Anyone listening to our podcast, come at me if I was wrong. But that's pretty close.
Okay. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It's funny when you said earlier, like, do I know what you do? I have a better understanding of what you do now than what you did when you worked with the expelled and suspended students. But
there's some distance there. There's talking about that because of the nature of it. I had asked you sometime this week whether or not you wanted to jump in on an opportunity. I'll say it. I'm speaking at that one. I'm doing a talk. So it's June 7th. I'm doing a Pakachka talk, or Pecha Kucha, if you know it as that, or a PK. I'm doing a talk, and the talk is, it's going to be centering around some of the stuff that I still haven't quite reconciled from working with students on suspension and expulsion. So some of my sort of post reflections on that.
Very interesting.
And it'll probably be, it's in part a part 2 to the Can Ed talk, or sorry, the Ed Can talk that I did with Hurley and the peeps from Canadian Educators Association that I got to do a couple years ago.
I really enjoyed that talk.
I was deeply affected by that talk. It's sort of like it stuck with me for a while. So this is a little bit of a, and thank you for that. I appreciate that. It's kind of like, I think this is just my way to put some of those thoughts to bed, and I can sort of kind of move on. But I think that the thing about that, I was actually considering doing a PK version of that talk, but I think it was too couched in, you sort of had to have a lot of the people in the room. I think I knew my audience, and the audience was a highly successful, they were business leaders, they were committee leaders, they were, sort of stars in industry. So I knew in what I was designing, I was looking to kind of get up under them and kind of lift them a bit with what I was talking about, and just kind of come out a little bit raw. I'm going to be a little bit more circumspect in this one, because I know that this is a group of people, like when the people that come out to see these things, they're coming out just for like, kind of like an interesting evening. Like they're just interested in hearing different types of stories. So if I come at it with a little bit kind of like too EDU tropey, like some of the stuff on the inside, it allowed me some shortcuts to get to those people in that sort of like closed space when I was with the EdCan group. Like there were some shortcuts I could take. I think talking to people that have zero direct investment in school, I had to shape it differently. So I'm going to sort of just take a little bit one step further back and hopefully connect with their hearts and their minds in a way like what it's like to be a teacher. The kind of frame is what it feels like to be a part of education and have the expectation that you're right and that you're leading the kids in a positive direction, and that you know what you're doing, when in fact there's a whole lot of guesswork there. And that's a little bit of my sort of working framework. So how did I get there? I'll be speaking about that, my time for the last time. You're welcome to come.
Where is it? And sorry, June 2nd, you said?
June 7th, I think. It's in Unionville. It's going to be there's an art gallery there.
I had something I was going to say, but it's not suitable for air.
Fair enough.
You have to give me a biscuit for that.
I will.
I've done a really good job.
For the after hours element, you've done a very good.
Thank you. Thank you.
The thing I will say, though, it will end up getting posted.
Okay.
So what they do is, and I'll definitely share the link with you, they post all the, because you have your slide deck. So it's the 20 slides. Each one's up for 20 seconds. Changes automatically. I think it works out. I never get it right. 5-minute 40 or 6-minute 40 presentation, in and out, done. And they end up posting it up with the audio to the PK Markham website. So I'll share the link out.
I want to go back to your talk at the EdCan network, where you spoke to an audience comprised of stakeholders in education around the work that you do, and not like the everyday in and out work that you do. What I took from it was like the heart and soul of the work that you did, the making connections with kids and the building relationships. And for me, it was for me, I don't know if I told you this, but it was raw. Like I could
Mm,
hear, having known you for a while, I could really sense the rawness. And I think there were a couple times where you broke down. Like
hmm.
it sank right in.
Yeah,
And
I choked up twice. I teared up. I did. I choked up twice.
but you know, that's what makes it that's what made it much more powerful for me, because it just shows how serious you are about your work and how someone like you belongs in a program like that. And it's too bad that you're not there anymore. But like, I understand that you need to move on, you need to do other things, you need to feel good about what you're doing. Not that you weren't, but you need a change. You found change, and that's good. I
Hmm.
just feel like, and I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast or not, but those are the things I'm chasing these days. Like, I'm not chasing other things. I'm chasing that authenticity,
Yeah.
chasing that, like, why are people doing what they're doing? And I had a great conversation today with a couple of my colleagues, and it was like an existential conversation. Like, what are we doing in this particular building, working with these particular kids? And I said to them, I said, I'm really in the right place right now. I feel like the work I'm doing with the students I have in front of me, and the work that I'm doing with myself in terms of who I am, where I come from, those two things seem to be aligned right now. And I have support.
It's crazy, eh? Like the energy that pops off that too. Like it
Yeah.
really is. The nearest thing you can kind of say is sort of electric. Like that's about as close as you can kind of. It doesn't even really express it, but it's a little electric. That's how I would kind of put it.
And it's hard to express. I just know that the people surrounding me are letting me do my work. Like, nobody's stopping me from doing what I'm doing. Nobody's telling me. I feel like I'm in a good spot right now. And I'm totally, totally, totally milking that electric feeling, if you will, because
Hmm.
who knows if it'll still be there next year. Who knows? It's just weird where you end up and why you end up there, and when you end up there. And so I guess what I'm trying to say from all that is, I think this is where, and maybe it's where we are in our career, right? Maybe it has to do with how old we are and the life we're living. It's part of the decoded experience, because I don't know about you, but every day I'm kind of trying to figure out what I'm about, what's going on.
Yeah, it's true.
Um, and it just rolls into, like, what happens at home, what
Yeah.
happens at work. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. Next week might be weird. Next week is Easter weekend,
Hmm.
and you and I might be getting together, and so then we'll have some laughs and
Hmm.
some grist for our podcast mill, so to speak,
Yep.
because we will have spent some time face to face again, which is a treat. So I don't know what next week brings, but I'm again, thanks for being accommodating and doing the after hours thing.
Yeah, you're welcome, man.
This was I don't know about you. This was a long week for me. I am exhausted, and I'm looking forward to some rest this weekend. But um, there's a short week coming up, and it could end with you and I hanging out again. That would be cool.
No, I said to you in the on ramp, I'm hanging my hat on it. I am looking forward to it. It was a great time last time. I haven't thought much about possible places to chow down, but I'm totally like on board with whatever sort of food crawl you want to do.
Well, it might be Old Faithful. We just go back to the Lank, because
Happy to go back.
it's good atmosphere, great food. I'm going to leave it up to you, because here's my thing. Here's my position on this. If you're driving, an hour and a half plus to get here to hang out with me, which is like, my wife would laugh if she heard me say that. But if you drove down here to hang out and chat, then like we're going where you want to go.
But
You know
it's your this is your territory, so I'm good. You know what? I'll take a peek. I'll drop some thoughts. You can sort of bounce them back, whether or not you're like, if you've been there, done that, not great. I'll see if I can I'll take a peek and I'll throw some ideas your way. It also becomes a travel time too, right? Because part of it is not spending too much time. I guess that's digestion time. But I do like the idea of a little bit of a food crawl, just to have a couple different bites.
Well, like I said, I have a system in mind, and it's not a crazy system. It
Hmm.
would be one of those things where you pull into town, you jump into my car,
Yeah.
and as we're chatting and chowing down, I'm orchestrating uh I'm orchestrating it so we don't it'll be seamless to you because you're just going to get in my car and we're going to go,
Okay.
and then I'll drop you back off at your car and you go home. But
Perfect.
it's a matter of, like, I don't want to get myself in a position where I can't top the length. And
Well,
that
but the thing is, that's now it's become like we just know we could go there. Like we know we could go and have something, right? It's like it's there. It's an option, but I'm open. So don't sweat that one. Don't sweat that one. I'm not looking to top. And I kind of do this with food too. Is I don't have things where I'm like it has to be like if something is good, it's good for itself, but it doesn't always compare to something that I would eat somewhere else. And I don't. Now, if you're taking me for some barbecue somewhere else, then you risk comparison. But see that, but that's the only crossover. I'm not necessarily going to be thinking to myself, this food isn't as good as that food. I can appreciate the stuff that's in front of me for what it is.
and it's that's not going to happen when it comes to barbecue. I'm sorry. The Lank is the place to go here in the region. If people disagree with me, come at me. Let me know what you think.
I like that. We've said that a couple of times tonight.
You
Come
said
at
that
me.
a couple. Come
Yeah,
at me
come at
because
me.
and watch out. Hog Smash EDU. Hey, what you think of that video that I sent you this week? Did you like
That's
that?
good. Yeah,
So
that's good.
Roland had a little bit of free time on his hands. I was probably procrastinating for my AQ course, and I felt it was time to put a little something creative together. And I sent it to Chris, and it was funny when you said something about pushing it out there, and I was like, no way, too embarrassing. But hey, Don Cherry wore Hulk on his
The
suit
Marvel jacket. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You see how I'm ignoring the other characters that were on his jacket.
It
All
was
I saw was
almost
the Hulk.
yeah, it was almost centered. It was well placed. It was a
Um,
very, very good product placement.
so one more thing about the food is that
Okay.
I can't bring myself to go to another barbecue place. There's a couple, but I'm like, no way. And it's funny too because every Friday, my family, we rotate and every week one of us picks where we're going for dinner. And when it's my turn, we talk about it's either going to be burgers or barbecue. It's one of the meats.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of times they've said, "Hey, there's that new barbecue place on," and I'm just like, no,
Don't do it. Yeah.
not if I'm going for barbecue, it's going to be Lank, and that's that.
I'm liking the story too. I like the history of the building. I like that it's easy to get in the driveway. Parking lot's a little tight, but hey, busy restaurants are like that. I like that it's unassuming from the outside. I like that it's not like right downtown in sort of like hipster crush. Like it's just it's well, getting to it is crazy. Like when I drove out to it, I'm like, where is Google taking me? Like this whole sort of like because I mean, even in Newmarket where I'm at, and like I'm kind of used to 90-degree things. So you go here and make a right hand turn, and then you make a left hand turn. It's like kind of very like right angles. When I came out to you, there was a whole lot of kind of like rolling hills and turning spaces. I was like, wow, this is like going backcountry style. So when your town kind of popped up all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, I think I'm here. And then I look down at the GPS and it says, you're 2 minutes from your destination. I'm like, I don't know where this is going to come. Like, there's nothing here. And then I come around the corner. I'm like, there it is. It's perfect. It was perfect.
What's funny is that if we went to Harmony Lunch, it's more of a hipster joint right now, but the history there is unbelievable. Like the walking into that restaurant is like walking into the past.
I dig those joints.
And I remember when I first moved here and settled, my father-in-law took me and my brother-in-law to it and we ate their original pork burger with the fried onions on it and the mustard, like the real deal. And I remember sitting in there looking around, and there were people in there that were like 100 years old, that had just gone there forever. And
I love it.
The man working the grill, which you could see him working, he had a mound of fresh onions that had just been cut, and they just tossed it on the grill, and he just slowly works them in, fries them, moves them on. And now when I go there with my family, you walk in and you're walking into the past, but it's run by modern people who are successful business people who actually they have a YouTube channel. It's pretty cool. They have like a cooking not a cooking show, it's a food show. It's really cool. I think you dig it. Anyway,
sorry, it's Harmony. What is it? Harmony
Lunch is the name of
I'll check it.
The restaurant. And it's hipsterville now, but it's just, I think, like I told you, it was funny. I'll tell this one story and then we're done. I'll turn this off. But I remember when I was telling you my idea that I got from the food show. Hey, if you don't want to do the barbecue, we can stop at this place and then we can go to this place. And your response was epic. You're like, dude, I can't eat that much food. And I'm like, no. We would literally step into the building. We would get one of their prime burgers, no fries, maybe a pop, maybe. We eat the burger and we pay the bill. We get in the car and we go to the next place. Like, we're not messing around with fries and onion rings. And
I like it.
You walk into the past, you eat the burger they're known for, and then we get out of Dodge and we go to the next place. It was just funny. You're like, dude, I can't do that. And I was like, yeah, I can't either. That's why we're just gonna hit it for what it's known for.
I like it.
Get the H out of there.
Yeah. Maybe that's the podcast. Maybe that's what we should do. Maybe we should do recording while we're eating. We can always edit out the bad bits. It might mean well. If because part of it is in the actual recording, this might be one where, we just piece together the audio. We actually don't have a video.
True.
For that week.
You know what we could do? Actually, dude, here's a good one.
Burger EDU.
One of our phones can be used to capture the audio. The other phone can be used to capture the video. And so it could be like snippets. Yeah. The video would be snippets. The audio might live longer than that. There's a couple of ideas I have there, but
I like it.
We could certainly string something together between the two of us.
I'll bring my tripod. We just set it up beside the table where we're sitting.
Don't mind us. We're just video record this. Yeah. Okay. So, man, thanks again. What a great. I enjoyed this episode. I don't know about anybody else, but this was episode 30, season 2, which means we're coming close to the end of the school year.
This is nuts. So we're up around 77 episodes.
Is that what?
Yeah. Because I think first season we did 45, 46, 47. Somewhere in there. So
as we end this podcast, I'm just going to say I've been thinking about Barbara Grande recently.
Oh,
and a possible resurrection.
Barbara's got to come back.
And that's it for this week. We'll see you next week.
I love it. See you.